I never imagined my father could be one of history's worst dads. Just like Al Capone, I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air felt thick, pressing down on me. I stood frozen, heart racing, a storm brewing inside. My father's shadow loomed large, turning everything I thought I knew upside down. His laughter echoed, hollow and cruel, masking the monster beneath. I wanted to shout, to confront him, but the words caught in my throat, like stones sinking deep into the dark water. No one knew what went on behind closed doors. Mom would say, "He means well," but every night, I'd hear the yelling, the objects crashing, and my heart would tremble. The stories whispered in the hallways at school haunted me. Your dad? The man with the fast cars and wild parties? They thought he was cool. But I felt the dark weight of his secrets press against my chest. The times I saw him with strange men in the alley, dirty bills passing hands, metallic glints of guns hidden beneath bulky jackets, I shivered. What was he involved in? Who was he really? My best friend, Jamie, once caught a glimpse. Do you ever feel like your house is a movie set? Like he's playing a role? Her eyes widened, fear pulsing through her. It was true. My life had never felt real, just a series of performances. I wanted to pull back the curtain, to reveal the truth, but the blend of fear and loyalty tangled me up. Then one night it escalated. A loud knock shattered the evening. My heart pounded. "Stay here," my father barked. He stormed to the door, tension crackling like electricity. I watched from the shadows. They exchanged heated words. The man wore a mask of fury. I couldn't hear everything, but the words betrayal and liability sliced through the air. I felt anger and despair intertwine. Suddenly, those words became a fist, hitting me square in the chest. I knew these were no mere conversations. Whatever lay beyond that door had the power to unravel everything. The man pointed, eyes wild, as if they'd turned into fiery bullets. My father stepped back, hands trembling. Fear seized me. If my father was a monster, who was that man? What had he done? The silence hung heavy. Would I even recognize him if he went too far? Tears blurred my vision. What did that make me? I felt dizzy, my world teetering on the edge of a cliff. The unknown whispered against my skin, chilling me to the bone. I had to know I had to dig deeper. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The night wore on, each tick of the clock a reminder that I couldn't hide forever. My heart beat aggressively, a drum signaling a war I had yet to fight. I wanted so desperately to turn away, to retreat to a world of fairy tales where fathers protect rather than destroy. But reality had unfolded, revealing a darkness I couldn't ignore. During the day, I wore a mask. At school, I filled the silence with laughter and false bravado, playing the part of the carefree teenager. Jamie noticed the cracks, though. "You've been off lately. Talk to me," she urged as we sat on the swings, the worn chains creaking under our weight. I looked at her, my confidant, my anchor, but words were prisoners in my throat. "Nothing's wrong," I lied, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Jamie shrugged it off, but her worried frown told me she wasn't convinced. I wanted to tell her everything, the wild nights, the echo of my father's laughter that chilled my very essence, the mystery of who he truly was, but the fear of the truth, and its implications, suffocated me. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in somber hues, I found solace in a notebook Jamie had given me. It was a tattered thing, the pages filled with doodles and scraps of thoughts. That night, I poured my heart onto its blank pages, desperate to carve my pain into something tangible. As ink flowed, so did my resolve to uncover the truth. The next day after school, I took a long route home, hoping to see him in action, to catch a glimpse of the man who was both my father and a stranger. My instincts whispered to be careful. That curiosity could choke me like the smoke from his late-night cigars. But I pressed on, driven by a desperation I couldn't explain. It began to rain, a light drizzle morphing into a fierce downpour. I ducked under an awning, watching and waiting. The alley was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that wrapped around you like a cold blanket. My patience paid off. I saw Hema figure emerging from the shadows, accompanied by the same man from that night of rage. They exchanged hurried words, their hands darting in and out of pockets, sharing glances that spoke of danger and desperation. "We're losing control," my father said, a tremor in his voice. "You need to make this right." I pressed against the wall, my heart hammering in my chest, a wild bird trapped in a cage. Guilt twisted in my gut. I was spying on my own father, yet the truth loomed larger than love. But then I noticed something hidden in the folds of his jacket, a glint of something metallic. My breath hitched as the realization struck me like lightning. It was a gun. My world crashed down around me. This wasn't just street bravado. My father was knee-deep in something dangerous, something that could swallow us whole. I turned to leave, compelled to escape this awakening, but slipped on the slick pavement. The noise echoed, slicing through the rain. He turned, eyes locking onto mine, a wild flare of recognition, shocked, betrayed. "What are you doing here?" he bellowed, the warmth of his voice stripped away, replaced by icy steel. Panic surged through me. I wanted to see. My words were feeble, crumbling under the weight of the moment. I wanted to scream, to run, but I stood paralyzed in fear and confusion. In that moment of frozen time, the face of the stranger next to him morphed into something far more sinister. The man stepped forward, a devilish grin splitting his face. "Interesting little bird you got here. She should be careful about sticking her nose where it doesn't belong." Hope flickered then, a fragile ember. Jamie's voice echoed in my mind, reminding me to trust my instincts. In the depths of the storm, I had to believe that even in darkness, kindness could unfold unexpectedly. I took a step back, my heart pounding, my voice shaky. "You don't scare me." My father's expression shifted, a mix of anger and something else, fear, perhaps? The stranger laughed, a sound full of malice. "We'll be seeing you around, kid." They retreated into the shadows, leaving me alone, drenched in rain, dread creeping in like a tide. What had I just stumbled into? My father, was he a monster after all? The questions morphed into an avalanche, burying me alive as I made my way home. A new kind of terror gripped me. I could confront him now, but would I truly recognize the man behind the facade? Or had I just begun to scrape the surface of a truth I wasn't prepared to face? The door creaked open, shadows pooling inside, waiting to swallow me whole again. And just as I stepped through the threshold, a light flickered, drawing my attention. On the floor lay a small package, wrapped neatly in brown paper. No return address. My hands trembled as I picked it up. What was this? And what did it mean for our already fragile world? My heart raced as I opened it, the wrapping falling away to reveal a single piece of paper, stained and crumpled. Yet the words burned bright against its fading surface. "Find me. You're in danger. Trust no one." Beneath the words lay a small photograph, me father, years younger, smiling widely, a group of men surrounding him. But I barely recognized him. Instead, my eyes widened in horror at a face standing beside Hema, teenage girl who looked strikingly familiar. My breath caught in my throat. It was me. The package lay heavy in my hands, the photograph flickering in and out of clarity as my mind spun. The girl, my doppelganger, stared back with an intensity that sent chills running down my spine. I could feel the walls closing in as I gasped for air. What did it mean? Who had sent this warning? And more importantly, how was I connected to this hidden past? I forced myself to step back, to breathe, but the air felt thick, suffocating, each breath a reminder that I was teetering on the edge of a profound discovery. My father, the man I had been desperately trying to understand, was entangled in some shadowy history that wasn't just a product of my imagination, it was real. Frighteningly real that I thought about what my father had said earlier, that they were losing control. Losing control of what? My thoughts raced, darting through family dinners and sporadic moments of affection that flickered like faulty bulbs. Had all that been a facade? Before I could spiral deeper into despair, I remembered Jamie. The way she always seemed to know when I was putting on a brave face. Her knack for seeing the small shadows in my laughter. I had to talk to her. If anyone could help me make sense of this chaos, it was her. With resolve, I texted her. "Can we meet? I need you." The phone seemed to hum with tension as I stared at the screen, waiting for the 3 little dots that signaled her response. Where? A second passed, which felt like eternity, and suddenly the floodgates opened, and I was back in that swing-set zone, revealing my heart to her, under the old oak tree by the park. 15 minutes? I pressed send, hoping she could sense the urgency layering my words. Our meeting spot was familiar, a sanctuary of childhood memories and whispered secrets. As I walked, every step echoed with the weight of my discoveries. I spotted her long before she saw me, the way the light danced off her hair like golden threads woven into a tapestry of friendship. When she turned and smiled, my heart fluttered, yet the smile faded quickly when she noticed my expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, concern knitting her brow. I hesitated, grappling with how to share the truth that could change everything. "Jamie?" My voice trembled, choked by the enormity of what I had learned. "I saw my dad last night and I don't think he's who I thought he was." I unfolded the photograph slowly, careful not to smudge the remnants of hope that had clung to my words. Her eyes widened as she took it from me, and I watched as the realization washed over her face. "This is you?" she whispered, her fingers trembling slightly as she turned it over, searching for answers etched in the faded ink. "Someone sent me a warning," I continued, my breath shaking, "and I think he's in trouble. I think him in trouble." My voice caught as I recounted the events from the night before the rain. The shadows, my father's voice hardened by desperation. "Are you sure this isn't just a mistake?" she asked, her mind racing, trying to grasp the impossible. "What if it isn't your dad? What if this is all a misunderstanding?" But deep within me, an instinct screamed that my father was involved in something larger than either of us could fathom, and that frightened me more than I wanted to admit. The stories of mobsters and crime lords my grandmother had told me as bedtime tales now felt like a cruel joke, with my own father woven into that dangerous narrative. "Jamie, I'm scared," I confessed, a tear escaping my eye. "What if finding the truth only puts me in more danger? What if before I could voice the worst of my fears, a sudden rustle in the bushes nearby froze us both?" We turned, hearts racing in sync, only to find a small dog emerging from the underbrush, wagging its tail as if offering us comfort amid the storm of uncertainty. I chuckled for a brief moment, grateful for the distraction. "Well, at least it's not another gang member," I joked, but the laughter died quickly. The weight of everything still loomed, heavy and suffocating. "Maybe this is a sign, you know? Kindness can sometimes come in the oddest forms," Jamie said, crouching to pet the little dog. "But we need to be careful. If your family is in trouble, we might have to dig deeper than we thought." Just as she said that, the dog perked up suddenly, its ears perked and body tense. It looked toward the path leading out of the park, and a chill ripped down my spine. I wasn't imagining the sense of someone watching us. The feeling had solidified, crawling through my skin. That in that moment of gut-wrenching clarity, the air around us shifted. I turned, scanning the edges of the park. My heart dropped when I spotted a figure lurking behind a tree. It was a man, too far away to make out his features, but the palpable sense of dread clung to me like a wet blanket. "Jamie," I whispered urgently, "we need to go. Now." Her eyes widened, and she nodded, the dog barking as if sensing our panic. But as we turned to leave, the last thing I expected was the figure stepping out from behind the tree. A familiar face that sent my heart plummeting into despair. "Long time no see, little bird," the same stranger from the alley sneered, a mocking grin on his face. "We need to have a word with your father. And you'll want to be careful where you tread." The world around me spun as I held tightly to Jamie's hand. Did this man know about the package? About the warning? Suddenly, the storm didn't feel so far away. It felt like it was right on top of us, and we were standing in the eye. In the dim light of the park, the figure stepped closer, his shadow stretching like a menacing specter across the grass. My heart raced, pounding in my chest like a caged bird desperate to escape. Jamie's grip on my hand tightened as terror etched itself into her features. The park, once a haven of joyous memories, now felt like a trap. "Who are you?" I managed to croak out, desperation clawing at my throat. The stranger's grin deepened, revealing teeth too white against the grim backdrop of his appearance. "You can call me Felix," he said smoothly, his voice dripping with a confidence that unsettled me. "And I come bearing warnings of my own." "Get away from us," Jamie said, stepping slightly in front of me, her protective nature shining even through her own fear. "You don't have to do this. Oh, sweet girl," Felix purred, a mocking lilt to his tone. "You have no idea what you're entangled in. There are forces at play here that are far beyond your understanding. Or your safety." His words wrapped around me like a vice, squeezing out any semblance of calm I had left. I glanced around, the once familiar paths now aglow with sinister undercurrents, shadows playing tricks on my mind. We were cornered, and it felt as if the universe was conspiring against us. "What do you want with my father?" I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. "He's not whatever you think he is. You're wrong." "Am I?" Felix shot back, and for a moment, a flicker of something more human crossed his face before it vanished. "He's dabbling in things he can't control, and you're his Achilles heel. It would be a real tragedy if something happened to you before he realizes the lengths he needs to go to protect you." I felt the panic rising once more, bubbling beneath the surface. "What do you know?" "More than you might imagine," he replied, and his eyes glinted with the thrill of power. "Your family has a unique history, a dangerous one. It's time to decide if you want to be part of it or turn away while you still can." I barely grasped the weight of his words, each one feeling like a pebble in a still pond, sending waves rippling out into my reality. My father, always the unassuming man in the background, followed by secrets that could ensnare us all. A breath hitched in my throat at the realization. What if the whispered stories were true? "Why should we believe you?" Jamie challenged, stepping closer, challenging the fear that screamed in the back of my mind. Her bravery shone almost too brightly in front of this dark figure. "This is just a sick game to frighten us. Leave us alone." Felix's laughter was cold and sharp. "Do not play games with the players who have already decided your fate." He tilted his head, looking at me as a hawk would survey a field mouse. "You're a part of this, like it or not. I suggest you think carefully about your next move." With that, he turned and melted back into the trees, leaving a thick fog of apprehension lingering in the air. I stood frozen, the weight of his words pressing down harder than the photograph that had started this chaotic spiral. "What just happened?" Jamie breathed, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What did he mean?" "I don't know," I whispered, feeling a feverish rush of confusion cloud my senses. "But if my father is part of something dangerous, then I have to find out what it is." "Maybe we should go to your dad now," she suggested, recalling that even the most innocent facade could harbor astonishing darkness. I don't know. A deep instinct warned me we needed to tread carefully. If there's genuinely something going on, we can't just walk into it blindly. We have to gather more information first. I can't put Heimer you in danger. "What do you suggest then?" Her gaze pierced through the fog of my uncertainty, urging me to lay out a plan. "We need those answers in the photograph and those darkened lines of history," I said, my determination solidifying. "We have to track down where it all began, find out who this girl is and how she connects to me." To my deity.s we turned to leave. A small, worn-out notebook nestled among the roots of the oak tree caught my eye. It looked as if it had been long forgotten, buried beneath the soil made soft by countless seasons. A glimmer of hope sparked within me as if it were the universe sending a hint my way. "Wait," I said, rushing back to pluck it from the ground. The dog barked again, tail wagging as it sensed our rising spirits, before bounding off toward the path. I flipped open the notebook, and my breath caught in my throat at the sight of familiar handwriting. It was my father's. As I scanned the page, the words blurred together in my shock. This was a record of transactions, of names, of codes that could only mean something sinister. My heart pounded as I read the unthinkable. The girl me daughter must be protected at all costs. The plan is set. We have to silence the past before it repeats itself. Sarah, what does it say? Jamie's voice broke through the fog, her expression etched with worry. I looked up from the pages, panic overcoming my senses. It was worse than I thought. Before I could explain further, I felt a presence behind us, cold, heavy, and insistent. I turned slowly, dread curling around my spine like creeping vines, as the gentle rustle of leaves heralded someone stepping from the shadows again. Looks like you've opened the wrong door, little bird. Felix's voice sliced through the air, and his figure emerged, flanked by two others, menacing and unyielding. The world shrank until it was just the five of us in that moment, every heartbeat screaming for escape. Jamie's hand found mine again, squeezing with desperation as we braced against the tide of fate, unsure if we were about to drown in a legacy of darkness or if we could find a way to fly away from it all. The chill in the air wrapped around us like a shroud, suffocating in its embrace as Felix stepped further into the light that filtered through the trees. I could see the hunger in his eyes, a feral longing that sent another wave of terror slicing through my resolve. But it was the two figures flanking him, their faces masked in shadows, that ignited a deeper fear, the fear of what lay beyond mere words, of what actions these people were capable of. Listen, we don't want any trouble, I managed to say, though my voice trembled with uncertainty. We just want answers. Felix laughed, a low rumble that sent shivers cascading down my spine. Oh, sweet girl, you have no idea how deep this rabbit hole goes. But let me offer you a little incentive to stay quiet. My heart sank. Before I could react, one of Felix's accomplices stepped forward, the gleam of steel shining in their hand, a small dagger, its point glinting ominously. Enough of your games, Jamie shouted, stepping defiantly in front of me. You don't scare us. The bravado in her words felt like armor being crafted swiftly in the heat of the moment, and yet, I could feel her bravery cracking ever so slightly in the face of danger. You think you can intimidate us into silence? We know what? Felix interrupted, a satisfied smirk on his lips. Know that your father is caught in a web he can't escape? Or do you believe you can somehow protect each other from the truth? At that moment, I understood the weight of my choice. If there were forces at play that threatened my father, then the truth could very well slice through our lives like a razor, leaving us bleeding in its wake. What do you want? I asked, desperation leaking into my voice. Who are you? They call us the Keepers, one of the masked figures said, their voice distorted, mechanical in its chill. We guard the truths hidden by generations, truths that your father thought he could bury. His secrets are his to keep, I replied, drawing on the flicker of defiance inside me. We're here only to find out what really happened. We aren't involved in whatever this is. A ripple of amusement ran through Felix. You are already involved, little bird. In quite a grand way. Now you just need to decide if you wish to soar or be trapped in the cage of your father's making. The weight of his words pressed heavily on my chest, conjuring visions of all the reminders of my father's love. But nestled within those memories, like thorns among roses, were the clues that hinted at a darker undertone lurking beneath our family's past. With a flick of his wrist, Felix commanded the masked figures to close in around us. Let's not waste time. You need to learn your father's lesson now. Truth comes with a price. And sometimes, it requires sacrifice. My pulse quickened. The finality in those words felt like a thunderclap, shaking the very ground beneath my feet. We're not giving up anything, I retorted defiantly, even as panic clawed at me from the edges of my mind. Seemingly unfazed, Felix's smile widened and he nodded toward the notebook still clutched in my hands. You've already lost so much, dear girl. Your father has dealt with demons you cannot fathom. And unless you're willing to embrace your role, those demons may one day come for you on their terms. As if on cue, the sound of rustling leaves wove through the air, more haunting and alive than before. In that moment, It felt as if the very world around us had swelled with anticipation, holding its breath for the impending chaos. Jamie's grip on my hand intensified, and time warped into a slow crawl as I surveyed our surroundings, searching for an escape route, a sign of hope. But the impending doom loomed like an executioner's blade. Just then, a distant bark broke the heavy silence. The dog, still patrolling the periphery of the park, darted towards us with a sense of urgency, as if sensing our distress. Its playful spirit seemed at odds with the darkness closing in. "Keep the dog away," Felix bellowed, suddenly animated with a troubling fervor, as if the unassuming animal were a harbinger of something beyond comprehension. "Do you want the truth or merely to avert your fears?" I echoed back, the defiance tipping toward desperation, desperate to stay in control even as the ground threatened to crumble below me. His eyes narrowed, and for a flicker of a moment, a look of vulnerability crossed Felix's face, one beat of raw emotion before his predatory demeanor returned. "Then brace yourself, little bird. For the truths you are not ready to hear are just a heartbeat away." With those chilling words hanging like a noose around my neck, I felt my stomach drop as the shadows advanced. Just as they reached us, the energy shifted, the air grew electric with something that felt impossible, a tremor of resonance that ignited an inexplicable understanding. And then, without warning, everything spiraled. The dog lunged toward Felix, barking furiously. But in a flash, the masked figure seized it by the collar, yanking it away effortlessly. "Oh!" I screamed, lunging forward without thinking. Jamie's hand slipped from mine, and I stumbled, reaching for the dog, but a force slammed into me, throwing me back to the ground through the chaos. I caught Felix's gaze, locking eyes with him, a grave challenge suffusing the bleak atmosphere between us. But beneath the wired chaos was an overwhelming sensation, an awakening. Perhaps it was a way out, a glimpse of clarity amidst the encroaching shadows, an understanding that maybe, just maybe, I could turn the tide. With a choking breath, I grappled with the truth that my father had shielded me from, and in the heat of the moment, as the shadows danced like serpents eager to strike, I made a vow. I would find the answers before they consumed everything I held dear. Suddenly, everything went black. I never imagined my father could be one of history's worst dads, just like Al Capone. My eyes fluttered open to a dimly lit room, the air thick with a musty odor that hinted at neglect. Concrete walls enclosed me like a tomb, devoid of color and warmth. Adrenaline rushed through my veins as the events of the previous encounter replayed in my mind. Where were Jamie and the dog? A flicker of hope beckoned within me, a certainty that I needed to take action. I had made a vow to myself, after all. Rubbing the back of my neck, I sat up slowly, each movement reminding me of the chaos that had unfolded just moments before I blacked out. Ignoring the throbbing pain in my head, I scanned the room for any signs of my friends or an escape route. Light slanted through a barred window, illuminating a peeling poster of a band I used to listen to with Jamie in high school. It felt like ages ago. A sharp pang of longing struck my heart. "Felix," I shouted, testing my voice. It echoed off the walls, amplifying my sense of isolation. A heavy door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside, head lowered. My pulse quickened in anticipation. I half hoped it was Jamie, but when the figure finally lifted their chin, my heart plummeted. It was one of the masked keepers, a man with a scar running down the side of his face. "Nice to see you're awake," he said, his voice a low rumble that sent chills prickling across my skin. There was a trace of amusement in his eyes that made my stomach churn. "You absorb pain well. Most people struggle to regain their wits so quickly. What do you want?" I demanded, my defiance rising like steam from boiling water. "Where's Jamie? And the dog?" He stepped forward, towering over me. "They're safe for now, or as safe as anyone can be in this tangled web your father has woven. What you should worry about is the truth you'll soon discover." I flinched at the reminder of my father. With every passing moment, the walls around me felt like they were closing in, the shadows of secrets looming larger than life. "What does that mean? What has he done?" His expression darkened, and I realized there was a depth of torment hidden beneath the gruesome scare, a flicker of empathy. "Perhaps you're not ready to understand." The stories your father has tucked away are meant to protect you. That's why he drew the line. But his past, it bleeds into your present. Little bird. Enough with the riddles. I spat back, pushing against the rising fear as it surged like an ocean tide threatening to drag me under. Tell me what he's done. Your father made choices that haunt him. Decisions that shaped him into the man he is to die, a man caught in a dance between the light and darkness of this world. His gaze drifted to the ground, deep in thought. But every bird needs to learn to fly. The question is, do you accept where you come from? Before I could respond, the door swung open, and a woman appeared, her presence electrifying the air. She wore no mask, her features sharp and compelling, a fierce strength emanating from her. We don't have time for this, she said, directing her ire at the keeper beside me. The elders have aligned. They've given their orders and we need to prepare her. Orders? I interjected, heart racing. What in the world were the elders? The woman's eyes narrowed, assessing me with a mix of skepticism and something akin to compassion. Your father isn't just a keeper of secrets. He's been sought after by those aligned with darkness. There are factions within the Keeper's power struggles that originated long before your production began. Power struggles? I echoed, confusion swirling in my thoughts. The words felt heavy, pressed against the weight of my heritage. What does that have to do with Jamie and the dog? Everything. The woman's tone shifted, becoming gentle yet firm. This life is perilous, and unless you can grasp the reality of your lineage, your friend and the innocent creature will pay the price. You are not just a girl walking blindly into this chaos. You are the key to define its outcome. Defining its outcome, I pondered those words, a fleeting thought sparking hope. Within the heaviness of uncertainty, there had to be a way forward, a way to rescue Jamie and the dog, to face the truth of my father's legacy head-on. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat before returning to life, flickering like the last moments of a dying flame. The keeper's expression turned tense, and he shared a glance with the woman. The air shifting again. They're coming, the keeper muttered, urgency dripping from his voice. We need to move now. Before I could grasp what they had said, there was a loud crash in the hallway outside, reverberating like thunder in the dense air of trepidation. The woman grabbed my arm with a surprising gentleness. Stay close and remember, follow your instincts. There's more at play here than you can imagine. I held on to that fleeting connection, even as fear coiled tighter around my lungs. Every moment felt charged with anticipation, thick with the possibility of danger. Yet it sparked something indistinct within me, a flicker of resolve against the encroaching doom. And just as we raced toward freedom, I caught a glimpse of a shadow moving in the corner of my eye, a figure darting past the barred doorway. My world tilted again. An avalanche of uncertainty crashing down upon Muho was out there, and was Jamie among them, or had the truth finally become the very monster we all feared? We stepped through the door, plunging down a dimly lit corridor, the scent of fear mingling with something lingering, a trace of familiarity that clung to the walls. As we turned a corner, the echoes of hurried footfalls echoed around us, growing louder and closer. Don't look back, shouted the woman, but my heart was already racing beneath the fear. I sensed an inevitable truth lurking, one that could either shatter everything or ignite a new beginning. In that moment, I realized I was no longer just a helpless girl. I was diving headlong into a legacy awash with secrets, a history of shadows, all to save those I cared for. Just as the uncertainty reached its peak, a piercing scream echoed through the halls, a sound that gripped my heart and twisted it violently as I recognized its source, Jamie. Panic swelled in my throat, tightening its hold, as the shadows surged forward, and I was left teetering between the truth I sought and the darkness closing in around me. The piercing scream of Jamie echoed through the corridor, wrapping around me like an iron shackle, tightening with each frantic beat of my heart. An instinct took over, raw and primal, pulling me forward with desperate urgency. We have to go back, I shouted, my voice cutting through the thick air like shattered glass. The woman's grip tightened on my arm, her expression turning grave. No, we cannot go back. It's too dangerous. But the conviction in her eyes resonated with something deeper within me, a glimmer of understanding that I was not simply fighting for Jamie. I was battling for the truth hidden within the roots of my father's legacy. How could I stand by as Jamie suffered? In a single moment, courage wrestled with fear, and I wrenched my arm free. "I'm not leaving her," I cried, turning back toward the source of the scream, though my heart thudded like a war drum warning me of the impending danger. "Felix, wait," the keeper called after me, his voice imbued with a mix of urgency and desperation. I didn't respond, my feet propelled by adrenaline as I dashed back the way we had come, ignoring the echoing footsteps behind me. The hallway blurred past, an endless stretch of shadow and unease as I approached the door from which the scream had come, a heavy, fortified gate barricaded against the chaos beyond. With trembling hands, I pushed against its rough surface, desperation fueling my muscles. It creaked open, revealing a small, dimly lit room where chaos reigned. A group of masked figures filled the space, their faces obscured, weaving through the dark like sinister phantoms. In the center, Jamie was pinned against the wall, fear etched across her face, the dog barking wildly at their feet. A wave of relief crashed over me upon seeing them, yet was instantly melted by the scene of turmoil surrounding us. "Get away from her," I shouted, stepping forward into the room, rallying every ounce of bravery I could muster. The figures turned toward me, surprise flaring in their eyes, a fraction of a second that felt like an eternity. I grabbed a rusted metal pipe from the floor, wielding it like a weapon. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me. Dare to meddle in our affairs, little girl?" One of the masked figures spoke, creeping closer, his voice laced with contempt. "You've no idea of the powers you're toying with. I know enough." My voice trembled but did not waver, every fiber of my being surged defensively. "I'm not afraid of you." As if sensing my resolve, the figures hesitated, whispering among themselves. Still gripping the pipe, I stepped further inside, determined to shield Jamie and the dog from whatever malevolence loomed before us. "Felix!" Jamie shouted, her eyes wide with an amalgamation of fear and gratitude. "What are you doing here? You shouldn't have come back." "I won't let them hurt you," I declared fiercely, locking eyes with the figure closest to me. But as I readied myself for a confrontation, the room shook violently, a deep rumble shattering the moment. "Enough!" A new voice erupted from the Shadowsan authority that silenced the whispers. The room grew cold, and my blood ran icy as a tall figure stepped forward, unmasking himself. It was my father. His features were hardened and gaunt, pale skin stretched over drawn muscles. Despite the remnants of familial recognition that stirred within me, the anger surged hotter. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice a low growl steeped in disappointment. "Saving my friends," I shouted, my own heart pounding painfully against the surface of my ribs. "You've been playing a dangerous game, Dad. What have you done?" He took a step closer, the air thickening with conflict. "This is not a place for you, Felix. You don't know what you're up against." "I know enough," I shot back, unwilling to yield in the face of his cold authority. "This is all about you, your past. Jamie and the dog are innocent, and if you think he'll let you drag them down with you, you're wrong." A flicker of something passed across my father's eyes. Fear? Regret? The moment slipped past too quickly for me to grasp. "You need to leave," he said, his tone suddenly softer, more vulnerable than I'd ever heard it. "For decades, I've kept you safe from this world, and now you want to jump in? You don't understand what will happen if you take one more step." My resolve flickered like the failing light over us, the uncertainty gnawing at me. But Jamie's presence, her unwavering belief in me, ignited a new fire within. "No, you don't get to make that choice for me. I'm not scared of whatever darkness you think is out there. I want to be part of my own story." "Your story?" he echoed incredulously, anger flaring back to life. "Your friends are pawns in a game far beyond you." The figures surrounding us began to shift, restless and agitated, the tension rising like an impending storm. "The elders won't be kind to interference," one warned, glancing nervously at my father. "Maybe this is what we need," he said, eyes flaring with sudden determination. But it's too late for you to turn back. A sudden realization struck me, an understanding of the gravity of our situation. The elders stood as looming specters who would not tolerate betrayal, and every second spent here pulled us perilously closer to a fate none of us wanted to face. No, I shouted, inching closer to Jamie. You won't lose me to this. I will not be just another piece on your chessboard. And just as I took that step forward, ready to face the consequences, the door behind us slammed shut with a resounding finality that echoed through the room and a whirlwind of chaos and crashing uncertainty. The masked figures surged forward, my father torn between protecting us and battling his own demons. They seemed drawn not just to my father's past, but also to the unfurling truth of my own choices, a truth that could threaten everything I loved. The battle for Jamie, the dog, and the path forward twisted into an unlikable chaos, where shadows collided with light, and I braced for the shattering reality of my father's choices and the awakening legacy I had no choice but to confront. As I stood there, the scream of one of the masked figures reverberating in the air, awash with confusion and impending doom, my heart raced, teetering on the precipice of fate, and with one terrifying realization. I understood I in this tangled web of light and darkness. It was only just beginning. The air lay heavy and charged, each breath I took feeling inadequate against the looming uncertainty. Jamie pressed against the wall, the dog barking in fear, while I stood defiantly in front of my father. Despite the threats around us, I felt a flicker of hope surge, urging me to find a way through the darkness. The tension was palpable, an invisible thread binding us to an uncertain fate. You think this is all about you? My father spat, his eyes flaring with rage. You are just a child playing games you cannot comprehend. Enough of this, I shouted back, the words spilling out in a rush as I felt Jamie's presence behind me. If you really want to protect me, then tell me the truth. Why are these people after us? What are you really involved in? The coldness in his gaze faltered, a momentary flicker of hesitation. It was as if I pierced through a protective layer, one that had shielded not just him but myself from the cruel reality of our world. But the softness in his eyes was short-lived, and the masked figures stirred restlessly, the urgency of the moment propelling their tension. You should never have come here. You have no idea of the forces at play, he warned again, authority tempering into caution, as if trying to retract the danger of his own past. Then help me understand, I pleaded, my voice cracking under the strain of raw emotion. The urgency of the moment pressed closer, wrapping around me like a noose. I won't let Jamie fall into this nightmare because of your secrets. A growl of frustration rumbled from deep within him, and for an instant, he seemed on the verge of breaking. The flickering lights above us cast long shadows, distorting the figures looming near. Do you think courage can shield you from darkness? Look at the lengths I've gone to shield you. This is not just about you and Jamie. It's about a legacy you don't even want. He fired back, his voice tinged with desperation, fury, and a hint of fear. Suddenly, a malicious roar echoed from the depths of the corridor behind us. The gate that had once shielded us from this chaos now seemed to beckon toward it. From the darkness came another figure, cloaked in shadows and malice. My heart dropped as I recognized the elongated silhouette, gleaming eyes glinting like shards of glass. Father? The figure intoned, his voice smooth and serpentine, slicing through the tension. I see you finally brought the prodigal child to play. Not now, Jonathan, my father barked, the once dominant facade cracking even further. Why not? Isn't this the very moment you have long dreaded? His smile was chilling, and I felt a cold wash of fear envelop my resolve. Perhaps it's time for our dear Felix to learn the truth about the legacy she's due. And wouldn't it be a delight to see the next generation write their own chapter of destruction? In that suffocating moment, as the shadows seemed to coalesce and dance around us, I felt the ground shift beneath me. The cruel grip of fate tightened, forcing both reality and fear into a singular alignment. Felix, Jamie whispered, her voice trembling. What is happening? Who is he? Jonathan is my brother, my father replied, the revelation imbued with a weight that settled like a stone in my gut. Hey, someone who knows the truth, Dear Felix. Jonathan interrupted, feigning sympathy. You see, the game has always been chess. But now it's your turn to play. Choose wisely. The words burrowed deep within me, twisting the knot of emotions tighter. Jamie's hand gripped my arm, her fear palpable. As I met her gaze, a cascade of emotions washed over me. No longer was this just about saving her. It was about navigating this treacherous maze my father had crafted. A web of deceit I had barely begun to unravel. Dad, what have you done? My voice wavered, a sense of betrayal clouding my heart. All this time, you've played us into this darkness. Felix, you must trust me, my father began. But the accusation in my voice cut cleanly through his words that I trusted you when you shielded us from the truth. But now, it feels like betrayal. This isn't just your legacy anymore. It's mine. Shouted, the defiance igniting anew in my chest. A flash of something unrecognizable flickered across my father's face. And he looked between me and Jonathan, the dread flooding the room, thickening the air around us. You don't understand the consequences. I've seen enough to know you've lied to us. The anguish in my chest morphed into something more empowering. This isn't just a game, Dad. There are lives at stake. In that instant, the figures around us surged forward, and clarity lit up within the haze of uncertainty. I couldn't hold back anymore. I wouldn't stand aside. As the conflict reached its zenith, Jonathan's twisted grin expanded, reveling in the chaos. Then let's see how far you're willing to go for those you love, shall we? And with that, he motioned with a sharp, decisive wave, and everything erupted into a whirlpool of motion-masked figures charged. My father wavered, and Jamie lunged forward, our hopes amid the pandemonium intertwining with the grim darkness waiting to envelop us all. The room seemed to shift around us, gravity pulling us in multiple directions, and just when I thought I could steady myself, everything crumbled. Amid the shouts, the chaos, and the looming darkness, a single horrifying realization echoed in my mind. I had a choice to make, and time was slipping away. How much of my father's legacy was I willing to inherit, and how far would I go to save Jamie in the process? The answer hung before me, tantalizing yet terrifying, forcing me to confront not only my lineage but also the darkness that awaited if I failed to embrace the truth hidden beneath it all. The moment seemed to freeze as the world around me spiraled into chaos. Jamie's hand slipped from my grasp as I felt the weight of desperation pull me down into the vortex of my father's precarious past. Jonathan's words echoed menacingly in my ears, the implications crashing over me like a relentless tide. Felix, Jamie's voice, suddenly closer, snapped me back as she spun around, dragging me away from the throng of masked figures surging toward us. We have to go. Now. I stumbled, caught between wanting to flee and the ache of loyalty that tethered me to my father. But as I glanced back, desperation clawed at my chest. The fear etched on his face was a mirror reflecting my own turbulent emotions. There was an unspoken plea in his eyes that I dare not ignore. Go. He shouted with urgency, the authority in his voice cracking under the weight of fear and regret. They'll hold them off. You have to protect Jamie. No, I can't leave you, I screamed, my heart clenching at the thought of abandonment. Please, Felix, he begged, his voice rising amidst the chaos. Trust me. This is not just for you, it's for those who will come after us. But how could I trust a man whose very life was entwined in lies, whose legacy seemed to bloom from the very roots of deceit? A fire lit in my veins as resolve solidified. I turned toward Jamie, whose wide eyes mirrored the storm brewing inside me. Let's go, I whispered, the words laced with determination. We broke into a sprint, the echo of chaos trailing behind us as we pushed through the maze. With each step, shadows chased us, threatening to swallow our flickering hope. Desperate, we dashed into a narrow hall, the flickering lights casting erratic shadows that danced menacingly along the walls around us. Felix, what do we do? Jamie gasped, her breath heavy with fear. I could feel her anxiety brush against my skin. Her comfort was my shelter amidst this storm. Find an exit, I urged, forcing my voice to steady as adrenaline fueled my resolve. We can't let Jonathan or anyone else get their hands on us. We need to get to safety. But safety was a mirage, fading with every heartbeat. As we turned a corner, the hall opened up into a wide room shrouded in darkness, save for the dim flickers of broken bulbs hanging from the ceiling. Out of nowhere, a masked figure emerged, blocking our escape. "Where do you think you're going?" he growled, his voice a low rumble as he stepped closer, shadowed eyes glistening with malice. "Move aside," I shouted, adrenaline surging. A flash of fear surged through me, but another feeling intertwined a sense of purpose. Before I could think, I grabbed a metal pipe from the floor and swung it, narrowly missing him as he dodged. "Felix, what are you doing?" Jamie gasped, fear mixing with a touch of admiration. "Fighting," I shouted back, fueled by something deeper than the need to survive. The burden of my father's legacy, the need to reclaim my truth. I needed to face the darkness, not just flee from it. With an unexpected twist, the masked figure lunged for me, but Jamie stepped forward, surprising us both with a defiant shout. "Leave him alone. You have no idea what we've walked through." In that moment, something electric surged between USA Connection, perhaps born of shared fear and a budding resolve. The figure hesitated, eyes flicking between us, uncertainty rippling through the air. "Make a choice." Jamie stepped closer, and I could see her trembling like a leaf amidst a storm. Yet somehow there was strength blooming in her hesitation. "We're not afraid anymore." And just like that, the moment fractured like glass breaking under the weight of revelation. The masked figure staggered back, a moment of indecision hanging thickly. It was then that I felt it, a glimmer of hope igniting, like the first flicker of dawn after the night. But before I could breathe, the shadow's cloaked figures surged forth, forcing us to scatter. "Run!" I shouted, urgency spilling into my every movement. The echo of Jamie's footsteps pounded beside me, driving us into the vast expanse of an uncertain future. We sprinted through the labyrinthine halls, every turn potentially leading to escape or further into the clutches of the darkness that loomed behind us. Just as we rounded another corner, a heavy thud resonated through the space, causing the ground to shudder beneath us. A flicker of cold dread clawed its way up my spine at the sound of Jonathan's laughter, dark and ominous, ricocheting off the damp walls. "Do you honestly think you can escape what's destined?" he taunted, his voice wrapping around us, curling through the dimness like smoke. Without pausing for breath, Jamie and I pushed on, hearts racing. There was no place left to hide. With every ounce of resolve, I clung to the hope that pulsed through me, hoping it would not be extinguished by the inevitable clash of family legacy and self-discovery. Then, just as the exhilaration of our escape filled the air, we reached a door bearing a single bright light shining from within. But as I reached the handle, a sudden crashing roar echoed behind us, demanding our attention before we could turn the knob. A monstrous figure burst through the shadows of despair, an embodiment of the darkness that had pursued us with relentless fervor. The world around me narrowed, leaving only the figure and the light as possibilities tangible yet terrifying. Where hope blurred into fear, there was no turning back. In that heartbeat of uncertainty, I felt the weight of every decision I had made thus far crash upon me, and the realization struck like lightning: this was the moment that would shape the future, not just of myself but of those I loved. "Felix!" Jamie cried out, panic in her voice, but amidst it all, I stood weightless, suspended at the precipice of destiny. As I faced the figure looming before me, a sense of clarity pierced through the storm. "Choose wisely," I whispered to myself, the echoes of my father's legacy pressing upon me. Because in the swirling tide of uncertainty and danger, my choice would define not just my path, but the tangled web of history we bore upon our shoulders. When the dust settled, when the echoes of chaos faded into the oppressive silence that enveloped the room, I felt an unexpected heaviness in the air. My heart trembled under its own weight, the shadows creeping closer, whispering doubts and fears that threatened to drown me. In that moment, it became painfully clear I was no longer just a girl caught in the vortex of my father's dangerous past. I was standing at a crossroads, where legacy, love, and truth intertwined, demanding a choice that could unravel everything I thought I knew. "Felix!" Jamie's voice yanked me back to the present, a lifeline thrown amidst the storm. She was there, steadfast and defiant, a flickering light against the encroaching darkness. In the chaos, I caught a glimpse of our dog, trembling but alive, hovering just behind her. Relief surged through me, igniting a spark of determination. "We can't let them control us," Jamie said, gritting her teeth, her grip on my arm firm and unyielding. With every ounce of strength, I stepped forward, a metal pipe still gripped tightly in my hands. This ends now. The confrontation loomed before us, and I could feel the shadows ripple in anticipation, tightening their hold around my resolve. Jonathan stood before us, his arrogant smile sending a chill through my bones. "Do you truly believe you can rewrite your fate?" he taunted, stepping closer, his presence an embodiment of the fear I so desperately wanted to escape. "You don't scare me," I shouted, the words spilling out in a fervent rush as they echoed off the cold, unforgiving walls. It wasn't just a declaration. It was a reckoning, a line drawn in the sand between fear and courage. Surging forward, I lunged past the figures lurking behind him, drawing the attention of darkness that sought to claim me. With Jamie beside me, I charged, navigating through the chaos like it was a second skin. My instincts kicked in, propelling me forward as I sought to salvage the pieces of my broken world. But Jonathan was relentless. He feigned a nonchalant demeanor, his mockery an echo of everything I was fighting against. "Child's play won't save you from the truth of your blood," he sneered, advancing with predatory grace. "Enough!" My voice bore the weight of the storm that had raged inside me, every word fueled by the realization that I was not alone. My father's choices, his shadows, and my own heartache intertwined into a mosaic of history that sought to rise above the darkness. "I want to understand my legacy, not run from it." The words tumbled out of me like rain, heavy and cleansing, washing away the remnants of my previous fears. And then, something shifted. I could see a flicker of uncertainty in Jonathan's eyes as he realized I was no longer just a pawn in this game. I was stepping into a role I was born to embrace. "That's cute," he mocked, but I could hear the tremor in his voice, the panic starting to crack through his bravado. "You've underestimated us," Jamie added, her backbone straightening beside me, a mirror of my own newfound resolve. "We know that there's more to the story than you'll allow. We're not afraid of the truth anymore." In that declaration, a pocket of strength swelled between USA bond forged through despair, but now tempered with purpose. The air thickened as Jonathan hesitated, the charged atmosphere trembling with the weight of potential. In that ripe moment, I seized the opportunity. Time slowed as I charged forward, pipe raised, and swung, striking true, my voice ringing like a bell. "We control our story now." The strike wasn't just physical. It shattered the illusion he had so meticulously crafted, revealing the fragility of power tethered to fear. The force of the blow ricocheted in ripples, sending shockwaves through the room, causing the remaining figures to retreat hesitantly, their allegiance suddenly fraying in the chaos. I glimpsed my father at the door, battling unseen foes, every muscle in his body taut as he fought for our safety. His fear transformed into a desperate resolve mirrored in my own heart. "Felix," he shouted, his voice raw with emotion. "Don't stop. We have to keep moving." With dreadful urgency, he beckoned us to join him, and for a moment, all the wounds, all the betrayal and hurt began to merge into something far more profound, the bonds of shared blood and experience pressing against the silence, igniting a flicker of understanding. In that split second, I understood him, the man who had attempted to shield me from the darkness, a night lord in his own right, battling an unspeakable legacy. "Dad," I called back, my voice steady with newfound clarity. "I'm ready to face it with you." Time collapsed around us as we raced toward the door he had opened, shadows clawing at our heels. Just as we crossed the threshold, a horrendous roar erupted behind us, Jonathan's fury and desperation radiating like a dark beacon. "This isn't over, little bird. The legacy will catch up to you." Stumbling into the light, we broke free into the open air, embracing the warmth that greeted us almost like an embrace. Jamie pressed the dog protectively against her chest, and together we turned back to face the doorway, the swirling mass of darkness behind it, waiting. "There's a world waiting for us, Felix," my father said, his eyes pooling with a raw mixture of love and fear. "One where we can rewrite our story." As we stood united against the remnants of our past, the shackles of uncertainty began to shatter, courage seeping into the cracks. In that singular moment, I felt the weight of a new beginning unfurl above us, the quiet promise of hope rising from the ashes. I turned to face my father, determination etched in my features. "Let's tell our truth, Dad." Together, as we took our first collective step forward, hand in hand, the finality of the shadows behind us began to lose their hold. That moment wove itself into the fabric of everything we had endured, binding us together, threaded with understanding and forgiveness. And with every step we took, a promise echoed beneath the surface. That the past could no longer dictate our future, and the power of our choices would forever shape the legacy still ahead. In the distance, the horizon shimmered, alive with possibilities. It was there, in its bright embrace, that I realized that every broken piece I had carried had now transformed into a fragile beauty and unwavering truth that whispered back to me. It was time to reclaim the narrative of our lives. And as the last flicker of twilight faded into the vast expanse of night, I knew deep within me the truth of my existence and history. We are the authors of our own legacy.